The regularly scheduled meeting of the Louisville Metro Council of January 30th, 2025 will please come to order. The time is currently 6 p.m. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. This meeting is being held pursuant to KRS 61.826 and Council Rule 5A. Madam Clerk, a roll call, please.
Councilmember Hawkins. Present. Councilmember Shanklin.
Present.
Councilmember Parrish-Wright.
Present.
Councilmember Herndon.
Present.
Councilmember Purvis.
Present.
Councilmember Leninger.
Present.
Councilmember McCraney.
Here.
Councilmember Reno Weber.
Present.
Councilmember Owen.
Here.
Councilmember Raymond.
Here.
Councilmember Kramer. Councilmember Joseph.
Here.
Councilmember Syme. Here. Councilmember Bast.
Here.
Councilmember Chappell. Councilmember Reed.
Here.
Councilmember Winkler. Councilmember Parker. Councilmember Piagentini. Councilmember Benson.
Present.
Councilmember Rui.
Here.
Councilmember Bratcher. Sorry, sir. Councilmember Hudson.
Here.
Councilmember Mulvey Woolridge.
Here.
Councilmember Batshon. Here. Councilmember President Ackerson.
Present.
Mr. President, you have 24 present and a quorum.
Thank you. Please cause the record to reflect that Councilman Kramer has an excused absence.
So noted.
Colleagues, we've been asked to hold a ceremony of swearing in for the newly elected Jefferson County Soil and Water Conservation Supervisors. Supervisors, please come forward into the well, and our Assistant County Attorney, Holly Hopkins, will administer the oath of office.
Do you want to use that mic?
Holly, the floor is yours.
If you all would raise your right hands, please. I do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution and statutes of the Commonwealth of Kentucky, and that I will faithfully discharge the duties of the Office of Conservation District Supervisor upon which I am now about to enter. Congratulations.
Congratulations, supervisors. Councilwoman Hawkins, President Pro Tem Hawkins, I believe you have a couple special guests. Sure. You have the floor, madam.
I'm going to call up Shane Crow and Mason Goodrich. And I'm not going to read these proclamations. I'm going to talk about both of these young men because I know them personally, so I don't have to read this. I'm just going to talk from the heart. My colleagues know how passionate I am. So, Shane is 17. Mason is 15. And as we all know and are well aware that the youth has been one of the biggest issues that we've been having. These two gentlemen could have been doing absolutely anything. It's a multitude of things that they could have been getting into. But instead, they're always looking to do something good, positive for the community. And you don't find that too quite often. Our youth are into a little bit of everything, but doing the right thing nowadays, right? That means a lot to me. They've made a huge impact on my district. And this is where it starts at, with our youth. So I wanted to acknowledge both of them. And I want to thank both of them on behalf of District 1, and my colleagues. When we had that bad storm, what we have in place failed some of our districts. Let's call it what it was. Some of our departments just was not able to get on some of those small streets and roads. Well, Shane Crow and Mason Goodrich did. And they did it wholeheartedly for free. Didn't ask for $1. Got some of those seniors out of their homes. And I just wanted to recognize both of them today. And I want to say thank you. I want to give them an opportunity, Shane, to say something, and then we can take a picture.
Good evening. First, I want to thank Councilwoman Hawkins for inviting me and my family to come speak today and being here today. It's truly an honor to be here in front of the most powerful people of the city. Y'all are the backbones of our city, too, and we appreciate y'all help, especially Councilwoman Hawkins. But it starts with the young people. I would say me and my brother try to empower the youth of young adults and young people to take integrity, to step up together and make a big impact in all communities, not just District 1, in all communities, the whole Louisville. So that's what I came here today. Thank y'all. Together, we can.
Very good. Thank you.
Councilman Hudson and Councilwoman Mulvey-Woolridge, I believe that you also have a special guest. You have the floor.
All right, I'm going to ask Mr. Brandon Malone if you will come up here with us. So I've been calling this Brandon's Week for those who have talked to me. This week, Brandon Malone has had the honor of being recognized from Mayor Greenberg, Fern Creek, and Okolona Fire Departments. And tonight, we wanted to celebrate his extraordinary young man, again, Brandon Malone. He's 17. He has shown courage, selflessness, and a level of humility that is rare and inspiring in saving 2 young ladies at McNeely Lake on January 16th, not long ago. Many of us go through lives wondering if we would step up in a moment of crisis. Would we have the strength? Would we have the bravery to the instinct to put others before ourselves? Brandon doesn't have to wonder because when the moment came, he acted. What's even more remarkable than Brandon's bravery is his humility. If you ask Brandon about that day, he just said, "I do what anybody else would do." But we all know that that's not always the truth. Not everyone would have had the courage to act. Brandon, you are a true hero. Not just because of what you did, but because of who you are. Your kindness, your courage, and your selflessness remind us of the good things in this world. And while you have not sought out the recognition, today we stand here to honor you, to thank you, and to tell you that your actions have left lasting impacts on the lives you saved, their families, and everyone here today. So I'd like to read the proclamation. To all these see these letters shall come, greetings, know ye, that the Louisville Metro Council hereby recognize and honor Brandon Malone. Whereas on Thursday, January 16th, 2025, 2 teenage girls were standing on the ice at McNeely Lake, ultimately falling through, leaving one of them in immediate danger. And whereas 17-year-old DeSales High School student Brandon Malone displayed remarkable selfless courage and quick thinking when he took immediate action to rescue them. And whereas Brandon swiftly brought one of the girls to safety, then turned his attention to the other young lady located further out on the lake. And whereas despite the perilous conditions putting his own safety at risk, Brandon exhibited his exceptional bravery, pushing through the freezing water and ice to reach and rescue the second girl. And whereas thanks to Brandon's quick, heroic actions and the emergency situations, both girls were safely rescued, preventing what could have been a tragic outcome. Now, therefore, be it proclaimed that on this day, January 30th, 2025, that Brandon Malone is hereby recognized and celebrated for his remarkable act of courage. The entire city of Louisville takes its great pride in honoring and thanking you, Brandon. You don't have to.
I will.
Okay.
It don't matter to me. I would just like to say thank you for this amazing award. I think it's good. I think even though there's so much bad with our generation, I know there is a light, and I just encourage anybody that has a moment like that to step up and do the right thing because it's the right thing. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Madam Clerk, are there any addresses to the council?
Yes, sir, we do.
Okay. I'm going to remind the folks who are here to speak, as those addressing the council, to please refrain from using any profanity or making derogatory statements towards council members. We ask that respect from you, and we'll show you respect as we listen to you speak, okay? Madam Clerk, please call the first speaker.
Shannon Floyd.
The COVID-19 global pandemic decimated millions and created a chasm in the housing market that we are still trying to recover from. A proposal was made to use mediation to prevent evictions with 4 primary purposes: maintain housing and financial stability for both tenants and landlords, avoid eviction notices on public records and reports, recover unpaid rent through a legally binding agreement, and to reinforce communication between landlords and tenants. Good evening. I am Shannon Floyd, the principal mediator for Resolve Restorative Practices. In partnership with the Office of Housing and Community Development, the groundbreaking eviction prevention mediation program officially launched in the spring of 2023. From April 2023 through March 2024, here's what we know. Resolve Restorative Practices processed 836 requests for mediations from landlords and property managers. Keep in mind, we were only charged to process at the most 180. 531 requests were eligible for eviction prevention mediation. 306 mediation settlement agreements were signed by landlords, property managers, and tenants. Less than 3% of those mediation settlement agreements resulted in an expedited eviction, less than 3%. 92% of landlord, property manager, and tenant respondents recommend mediation as an appropriate way to resolve disputes, grievances, and complaints. Mediation is cost-effective and a more expeditious process than eviction court. Having said this, we can no longer afford to apply pre-COVID solutions to post-COVID housing problems. Progressive solutions to complex social issues maintain the health of an economy across housing, education, business investment, and private consumption. I'll turn it over to my colleague, Courtney Sharif, the Executive Administrator for Resolve Restorative Practices.
Thank you. Courtney Sharif, sorry.
Thank you. I also want to thank Council members Reno Weber and Rui for not only responding to our request to meet, but making themselves available to do so. And I'll begin by re-emphasizing what my colleague Shannon stated, right? That we cannot continue to address post-COVID issues with pre-COVID solutions. Remember, Resolve Restorative Practices eviction pre-filing mediation pilot was initially created because of the anticipated post-COVID surge in eviction filings. I'm sure we're all aware of the uncertainty around federal assistance, the future of it, and which includes rent subsidies and housing voucher programs, among other resources. We don't know how long these will last or what will last, but we do know that landlords have real expenses and we know that tenants have real bills. So it might behoove us to anticipate another surge in evictions during this time of uncertainty, unless we ensure that landlords and tenants are both aware of a viable alternative to eviction, which is what pre-filing mediation could serve as. Just quickly, I would like to share some benefits to, some evidence-based benefits to eviction prevention. The research shows that both parties are more willing to consider alternatives when they meet before having filed for eviction. They're able to think of creative solutions or think outside of the box. For example, possible solutions when it comes to issues of non-payment include forgiving a certain portion of the debt owed, coming up with a more feasible payment plan, finding rental or other financial assistance, et cetera. Each situation is unique, and the tenant and landlords can figure out what works best for them. It also decreases the rates of homelessness. Kalamazoo, Michigan, for example, saw a 50% decrease in evictions and a 9% decline in homelessness during the first 5 years of its eviction diversion program, which stems quite nicely into this other benefit, which is increased housing stability for tenants. Tenants avoid having an eviction on their housing record, which is akin to a felony. That does impact future housing opportunities and could potentially make tenants more susceptible to predatory landlords and/or homelessness. But it doesn't just increase the economic stability of the tenant, it also does so for the landlord. Landlords who experience successful mediation don't have to go through the expenses associated with tenant turnovers and court fees. Thus flowing into another benefit, which is reduction in the burden of the court system. Pre-filing mediation settles disputes before ever being filed in court, alleviating the strain on the system in that way. Lastly, my colleague Shannon already spoke to this, but both tenants and landlords view it favorably. She shared statistics that are specific to Resolve Restorative Practices, but the research shows that it comes up again and again in these programs. Not to mention trickle-down effects like boosting the local economy, fostering greater community, improving landlord-tenant, relationships, and providing increased access to local resources, among other benefits. But in the interest of time, I will turn it over to my colleague, Ebony Dixon, who serves as a mediator for Resolve Restorative Practices.
Thank you. Ebony Dixon.
All right. So in conclusion, what we are asking here, we are asking for Metro Council to support the mediation to be mandated prior to filing eviction as outlined under Gibraltar Statute 383.525, settlement of dispute claim or rights. A claim or rights arising under Gibraltar or a rental agreement if a disputed in good faith may be settled or agreement. In addition, Ordinance number 052 Series 2001 covers individuals may receive access to legal services from designated organizations under a contract, grant, or other services agreement with the lead partner organization. The designated organization shall provide legal services in covered proceedings or as such an initial the beginning of the proceeding, and no later than a time or of individual of first scheduled appearance in the covered proceeding. Resolve Restorative Practice has constantly demonstrated the transformation power of mediation in resolving dispute and fostering strong communications. By mandating mediation prior to an eviction filing, we can maintain housing stability, avoid eviction notices or on public records, kind of eliminate felony statuses in the residential housing, and reducing court dockets, which we all need. Thank you for considering our proposal at this time. We are trying to enhance the well-being of our communities. We are happy to meet with the Equity, Community Affairs, Housing, Health, and Education Committee and the Committee of the Whole to discuss further matter. We could be reached at www.resolverestorativepractice for any future communication. Thank y'all.
Thank you. Reverend Timothy Finley.
The U.S. Census Bureau, by 2035, projects that the silver tsunami will mark the first time in history that seniors 65 and plus will outnumber young people under 18. I'm Tim Finley, CEO of ElderServe, and I'm here with one clear message. We have to do more for our seniors. Right now, too many of our elders are struggling. Housing insecurity, lack of transportation, and rising financial fraud are threatening their well-being. These are not distant issues. They impact thousands of seniors in our city. That's why I'm presenting ElderServe's 3-point action plan. This plan is not just about policy. It's a moral obligation to those who built this city. Number one, safe and affordable senior housing. Too many seniors face rising rents on fixed incomes, forcing them into unstable or unsafe housing situations. Our solution, expand funding for affordable senior housing and require age-friendly housing in new developments. Implement property tax relief so seniors are not priced out of their homes. Establish a senior home safety improvement fund for accessibility modifications like ramps and grab bars. Why does this matter? This prevents displacement and allows seniors to age in place with dignity. Number 2, reliable and accessible transportation. Many seniors can't drive and lack reliable transit options, making it difficult to attend medical appointments, buy groceries, or stay socially active. Our solution: expand free or reduced fare transit for seniors, launch on-demand senior shuttle services for medical visits and errands, improve sidewalks, crosswalks, and bus shelters to enhance pedestrian safety. Why does it matter? Reliable transportation means independence and a better quality of life. Number 3, protection and wellness for seniors. Elder fraud, abuse, and neglect are rising, yet many cases go unreported due to lack of resources and awareness. Our solution: establish a senior fraud protection task force to combat scams, increase funding for mental health, nutrition programs, and free health screenings, require elder abuse prevention training for caregivers, financial institutions, and first responders. Why does it matter? Seniors deserve safety, dignity, and access to vital health services. Our closing statement and call to action is this: we have a choice as a city. We can ignore this crisis or we can take action. One thing that is not an opinion is that by 2035, there will be more seniors in this city, in this state, and in this country than there are young people. Are we prepared for this silver tsunami? Thank you.
Thank you. Nick Kravitz. Nick Kravitz. David Kalin.
Good evening, everyone. On the behalf of the Conservation District, we'd like to welcome all new and returning council members and look forward to working with everyone in this upcoming year. A lot of people haven't heard of the Soil and Water Conservation District, but we've been around since 1944. One of the reasons we exist is so state and federal funds can pass through to individuals or entities such as our park systems, nonprofits, and individuals. Pass-through funds are the key word there. There's a district in every Kentucky county. Logan County has 2. This coming summer, for the second year in a row, we will be hosting the Kentucky Association of Conservation Districts Conference at the Crown Plaza. Across the U.S., nearly 3,000 districts exist, almost one in every county. We partner with NRCS, USDA, and work directly with landowners to conserve and promote healthy soils, water, forest, and wildlife. Nathan, who works for NRCS, USDA, he started 2 years ago after Kurt Mason retired after 35 or more years. Nathan has written 32 contracts over the last 2 years, totaling over $650,000. Some recent ones are to Wilderness Louisville. See, the money doesn't go right directly. It has to go through a nonprofit that does the work at the parks. Wilderness Louisville's doing over $116,000 at Chickasaw, Shawnee, Jefferson Memorial. Brush management on over 300 acres. Louisville Nature Center is doing brush management on Metro Louisville and Bellarmine ground. And the Louisville Olmsted Parks Conservancy is doing over $100,000 worth of work at Iroquois Park. We are under strict state oversight requirements because we are appropriated direct aid funds. With those funds, we get an 80% match from NRCS, and we use those funds. We're so thankful that Metro Council funded us last year. We were able to hire a young man, David Nichter, whose family came with me tonight. His focus is on food desert areas with low tunnels, high tunnels, help people to extend their growing. Another new thing is ag districts. They used to have to be 250 acres, but a state law changed that to 50, so our farm's going to be the first new ag district to take advantage of that law coming up. And we thank you for your continued support and look forward to working and helping everybody in the county. Thank you.
Thank you. Michelle Sarwar. Thank you, ma'am.
Good evening, council members. My name is Michelle Janan Sarwar from District 17. I stand before you today as both a citizen and a voice for an often overlooked demographic in our Louisville community. I come here to thank you, so don't worry, but also share a story. As a second-generation American born in Clarksville, Tennessee, just 3 hours south of here, I've made Louisville my home for the past 7 years, where my spouse and I raise 3 beautiful daughters in the school system here. I represent a diverse group of fellow professionals, fellow healthcare workers, entrepreneurs, artists, and even parents who contribute significantly to our city's fabric, but often feel unseen. Let me share 2 contrasting recent experiences that highlight some challenges that I personally have had. Recently, I was asked to carry my passport with me and immigration papers, which I don't even have because, remember, I was born in Clarksville, Tennessee. This was a startling reminder of how some view American citizens of, I guess, foreign appearing descent. And then when I started my global publishing company 4 years ago, I was immediately disqualified from a local business incubator that was said to serve Black and brown people because I did not fit their narrow definition of diversity. However, again, all of my experiences have not been negative. I've experienced Louisville's immense potential for inclusivity. Through the Ukaji Institute from Metro United Way, I established Salam Storytime. It's an official 501c3 nonprofit that is geared towards promoting literacy for all children. Last year, as part of the Bellarmine University Women of Color Leadership Cohort, I was able to receive support to further my mission of amplifying underrepresented and underestimated voices. I'm currently a proud member of the Ambassador Program through the Office of Women here in Louisville. I stand here today, again, not with complaints, but with hope. There's an entire community of educated, capable professionals from Asian, European, and various other backgrounds who have traditionally stayed away from politics and other civic engagement. Thanks to leaders like you, many of who I've been able to meet recently, I've been able to share my voice. My message is this: thank you for the work that you do, and as you continue to work on initiatives, please lean into a mindset of expanding the definition of who you invite to the table. Thank you.
Thank you. Toni Morris.
So, good evening, everybody. My name is Toni Morris. I am the housing organizer with Vocal Kentucky. I would like to start this conversation off. At any given night, there are 1,700 unhoused people in the city of Louisville with no access to restrooms, hand washing, and clean, drinkable water. Before Councilman Arthur had left, he wanted to see the restroom count. Is there any update for that? I would like to see if we know where people are able to use the restroom and without having to buy something. Parks are not open at all for the use that they are intended for. Why? We know our city and state is receiving millions of opioid settlement dollars over the next 16 years. Our mayor needs to make the grant and distribution process transparent and allow folks with lived or living experience to be part of that process. That money comes from lives that we've lost, friends we've lost, time served away from our family, and etc. It should only be used for new, evidence-based, people-centered programs that saves lives. My last thought around everything that I'm talking about is citing our unhoused and what that is really looking like. What are we, hold on, are we going to talk, we're going to end up taking a step back. If we are a caring and compassionate city, like I keep hearing we are, then I ask where? We are discriminating against our people from the clothes that they wear all the way to carrying a blanket or a sleeping bag. If we care about people, then why don't we have more housing? Why are they doing camp cleanings, and giving out citations during White Flag? Also wanting to put people in homeless shelters that operate without licenses. Okay? I close this like this. How can we feel better at night knowing our people don't have a place to call home besides our sidewalks, and to have to buy something to use a restroom? We need more compassion, love, and justice. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Thank you. Daniel Cobble.
Attached, you have my two-page letter draft with two attachments to Mayor Craig Greenberg and Metro Council President Brett Eckerson to endorse and send to President Trump, Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell, and House Speaker Mike Johnson. The latter implores government to save America by restoring the strong U.S. dollar. I will now read from the letter. In the 3 antitrust violations by Federal Reserve causing the weak U.S. dollar, it will stop the constant hikes in taxes, postal fees, and gold prices. Dear President Trump, Chairman Powell, and Speaker Johnson, pursuant to the routine ads on WGTK Radio 970 AM in Louisville, Kentucky, the gold industry is finally admitting the weak U.S. dollar is causing the constant hikes in gold prices, leading to the eventual collapse of the economy. These ads also imply the Federal Reserve will then impose the unwanted digital currency upon Americans. However, the ads are withholding the cause of the weak dollar, the 3 antitrust violations that began in 1999, causing the transfer of wealth to Wall Street corporations. The 2 attachments, 1 lists the 3 violations, and 2, figure 2, shows the results of stopping the violations. It will restore American free enterprise for small businesses, the strong dollar, by once again distributing dollars equally to everyone, including into third world nations that desperately need the dollar. Hence, the evidentiary motive for imposing a digital currency is to keep restricting American prosperity. The real cause of high prices, with the violations causing the wealth transfer, Wall Street companies and its venture capitalists, foreign investors, etc., are buying up everything: real estate, stocks and bonds, other companies, hospitals, and the healthcare industry, invading unconventional industries such as mom and pop heating and air conditioning companies, precious metals, etc., etc. Because this amassing of cash cannot sit still, the consolidation of wealth companies and industries is reducing competition, causing prices across all industries to keep rising. So you have the rest of the letter. I ask the public to push you all to send this letter to Washington. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. President, that concludes the addresses of council.
Thank you. Next, we have approval of the council minutes for the special meeting of January 9th, 2025.
Motion?
Are there any corrections or deletions? Nope. Motion's been made, properly second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any in opposition? Hearing no oppositions, the ayes have it. The minutes are approved as written. Next, we have approval of the following committee minutes, all in 2025. Special Planning and Zoning Committee, January 21st. Special Labor and Economic Development Committee, January 21st. Special Government Oversight, Audit, and Appointments Committee, January 21st. Special Appropriations Committee, January 22nd. Special Committee on Committees, January 28th. Are there any corrections or deletions?
Second.
It's been properly moved before us. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any in opposition? Hearing no opposition, the minutes are approved as written. Madam Clerk, do we have any communications to the council?
Yes, sir, we do.
Please read those into the record.
This letter was attached to the resolution numbers 135 and 136, Series 2024. Dear Ms. Harwood, enclosed, please find Resolution 137-24, Series 2024, and Resolution 143-24, Series 2024, passed by the Louisville Metro Council in its meeting on December 12, 2024, in which Council approved the initiation of proceedings to the Landmarks Commission to potentially designate as landmarks certain properties located at 982 Eastern Parkway and 3113 South 4th Street in Louisville, Kentucky. The Historic Landmarks and Preservation Districts Commission may commence proceedings and potentially designate a property as an individual landmark if it receives a letter from the property owner, a petition requesting the designation signed to be no fewer than 200 residents of that district, which shall include research showing that the proposed individual landmark is architecturally, historically, and culturally significant, possesses integrity as stipulated in the ordinance or a resolution of the Metro Council. Given the significance of designating property as a historic landmark, there is rightly a high bar of initiating the individual landmarking process, which is why prior to 2024, only one resolution initiation of this process was approved by the Metro Council. Before Metro Council took action to initiate a landmarks designation review for the structure, a property owner should be engaged so that there is complete understanding of the ramifications of the action of the property owner and community interests. Unlike the resident-initiated process, the Metro Council-initiated process does not require a detailed petition, so it is incumbent upon the Metro Council to engage the property owner as well as investigate and provide research detailing the basis for such a special designation prior to initiating proceedings from before the Landmarks Commission. Based on the letter I received from the property owners of the two sites in these resolutions, apparently this due diligence was not conducted. One owner received no notification that a landmark designation process was being initiated for their property. The other, who was notified, received no response to questions about the process. Because of this and other concerns which are detailed in the attached letters, both property owners oppose these resolutions and have urged me to veto them. Vetoing legislation approved by the Metro Council is not something I take lightly, as I respect and value our separate but shared roles in serving the people of Louisville. I also take great pride in our city's commitment to preservation and our wealth of historic buildings that are the envy of cities across the country. Prior to being mayor, I dedicated my career to preserving and restoring historic properties locally. I was part of the successful effort to save historic buildings and facades at Whiskey Row, which was landmark buildings. I also developed 5 vacant historic buildings into 21C Museum Hotel. These historic preservation projects have been successful in part due to the significant collaboration between the community, property owners, and elected leaders. For a city like Louisville, which so many incredible historic buildings, our strong commitment to preservation is a powerful asset, and is why the integrity of the landmark process is paramount. In this case, the process leading to the approval of these resolutions did not reflect an appropriate level of notice and engagement with the property owners or due diligence for such a rare and significant designation. It is for these reasons that I have vetoed resolution number 137-24 and resolution 143-24. I have offered and am committed to working with Metro Council to find a different, more collaborative way to honor these two entities, one that would welcome and that would be celebration of their beloved status in our community. Sincerely, Craig Greenberg, Mayor. Dear President Ackerson, in accordance with the ordinance, I am reappointing the following to the Code Enforcement Board. John Chris Wantland, a reappointment term expires February the 9th, 2028. Pamela Waddell, a reappointment term expires February the 9th, 2028. Your prompt action on these reappointments is most appreciated. Sincerely, Craig Greenberg, Mayor. Dear President Ackerson, in accordance with the MSD ordinance, I am appointing the following to the board. Christopher Burkle, a new appointment term expires July the 31st, 2026. Your prompt action on this appointment is most appreciated. Sincerely, Craig Greenberg, Mayor. Dear President Ackerson, in accordance with the Riverport Ordinance, Authority Ordinance, I am appointing the following: Dr. Rick Blackwell, a new appointment term expires July the 31st, 2027. Your prompt action on this appointment is most appreciated. Sincerely, Craig Greenberg, Mayor. Dear President Ackerson, in accordance with the ordinance, I am appointing the following to the Tree Advisory Committee: Mayor Brent Hagan, a new appointment term expires November the 29th, 2026. Cindy Fowler, a new appointment term expires November the 29th, 2026. Lori Rafferty, a new appointment term expires November the 29th, 2026. Your prompt action on these appointments is most appreciated. Sincerely, Craig Greenberg, Mayor. Dear President Ackerson, in accordance with the ordinance, I am reappointing the following to the Louisville Arena Board: Christy Dixie Pickell, a reappointment term expires January the 9th, 2029. This is to be read in the record only. Metro Council approval of this reappointment is not required. Sincerely, Craig Greenberg, Mayor. Read in full.
Those appointments needing council approval will be forwarded to the Government Oversight Audit Appointments Committee. Our next order of business is the consent calendar. The consent calendar comprises items 18 and 19. Are there any additions or deletions? Madam Clerk, a second reading of those items.
The following legislation was forwarded from the Labor and Economic Development Committee. Item 18, a resolution ratifying and approving collective bargaining agreement from the date of the approval by the Louisville Jefferson County Metro Council to January the 30th, 2026, relating to wages, benefits, and other terms and conditions of the employment between Louisville Jefferson County Metro Government and Teamsters Local Union 783, affiliate of the International Brotherhood of Teamsters, concerning certain employees of the Department of Public Works and Assets, Department of Codes and Regulations, Metro Police Department, Facilities and Fleet Management Department, and Parking Authority of River City. The following legislation was forwarded from the Planning and Zoning Committee. Item 19A, an ordinance amending the Louisville Metro Land Development Code, LDC, regarding zoning enforcement, case number 24 LDC 0011. Read in full.
Is there a motion? The item is properly before us. Madam Clerk, it requires a roll call. Please open voting.
Hold on. Will you change the screen for me, please, ma'am? Councilman Benson? Councilman Benson?
Yes. Do you hear me?
Yes, sir, I'm sorry. Yes, I did. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. President, you have 25 yes votes.
The consent calendar passes. The next item of business will be special legislation. Colleagues, pursuant to Council Rule 7.01B, item 20, this year's council calendar is being considered as an administrative function of the council, so it may be passed at the same time of the meeting which is introduced. Madam Clerk, a reading of item number 20.
An ordinance amend the Louisville Metro Land Development Code, LDC, regarding zoning enforcement, case number 24, A resolution approving the committee meeting schedule of the Legislative Council of the Louisville Jefferson County Metro Government Council for the calendar year 2025. Read in full.
Second.
The item is properly before us. Is there any discussion? Council President Pro Tem Hawkins, any discussion? No discussion? Then hearing none, this is a resolution that requires a voice vote. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any in opposition? The ayes have it. The resolution is adopted. The next item is old business. Madam Clerk, a reading of item number 21.
Reconsideration, a resolution directing Landmarks Commission staff to begin the landmarks review process for the historic Wagner's Pharmacy located at 3113 South 4th Street, read in full.
Item is brought before us. Is there any discussion on this? Colleagues, I've got to inform you that in order to override this veto, it's going to take a two-thirds majority of this body. That's going to be 18 votes. We can't amend the legislation, so this is either a vote to override the veto or a vote to not override the veto. Are there any questions?
Just a point of order. Yeah,
You've got the floor, sir.
just for clarity, Mr. President, it is a vote of yes on this is to override the veto. A vote of no is to uphold the veto. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Councilman Chappell, would you like to speak to this?
Hello. I feel like I have my emotional support IT person right here, but we're going to get my computer fixed while I'm talking. I'm fairly confident that Metro Council will not be overriding these vetoes tonight, and as disappointing as that may be, I'm going to take the time to speak to both of them. It's disheartening to hear the amount of misinformation and lobbying that has gone on behind closed doors about these simple resolutions. As many of you are aware, and maybe our new folks aren't, the Office of Planning created a document that identifies possible landmarks throughout Louisville, and it identifies them in each district as well. In 2023, I asked the Office of Planning to update this document to reflect redistricting. The document identifies about 22 landmarks that exist within District 15. There's 3 different ways to start the landmarking process. The first is at the property owner's request. The second is a petition by residents. The third is a resolution from Metro Council. I believe that there have been 5 resolutions passed by Metro Council asking for a landmarking review. And I believe the first of those was with the Oddfellows building. Many of you may remember that landmarking case, and even if you don't know the details, you probably know that it was a controversial one. It was very contentious, and a lot of that was because the landmarking was pursued as a reaction to halt the development of the Omni Hotel. 3 of those landmarks that Metro Council has filed occurred last year when I initiated the process to proactively landmark Iroquois Amphitheater, the Willmans Bench at Wayside Park, and Manual Stadium. I'm overjoyed that all of these locations were able to achieve landmark status, and that is in large part thanks to you all for voting that way. Here I am presenting Manual's principal, Dr. Michael Newman, with the landmarking plaque. They were nice enough to invite me to come to the game in October to flip the coin as the Rams took on PRP. I'd like to remind my colleagues that the resolutions that we approved simply starts the landmarking process. It does not make these landmarks. The resolutions ask for the staff to investigate and study whether the property meets the requirements of the Landmarks Ordinance, and for the Landmarks Commission to determine the designation and determine if the designation is warranted. These resolutions, the equivalent of asking the Planning Commission to study and provide land development code recommendations to council. One such request like this is on the agenda for new business tonight, and it regards financial institutions and payday lenders. The resolutions in question tonight that have been vetoed were approved at the December 12th Metro Council meeting. They were on the consent calendar and they passed 25-0. It's my understanding that this is the first time that a Louisville mayor has vetoed anything that has been on the consent calendar. Furthermore, these are the first mayoral vetoes since 2010. Let me rephrase that. It's been 15 years since a veto. That last veto opposed Metro Council's revisions to the Landmarks Commission, which granted Metro Council final landmark authority. It was overturned, and thus Metro Council has a final say after the recommendations have been made to determine if this will be a landmark. The power is on council. If the mayor wanted to appease Churchill Downs or Kosare Charities, he could have simply not signed the resolutions, much like he's done in the past, and he could allow Metro Council to operate without his oversight. By allowing these vetoes to stand, the mayor will be interfering with the pursuit of a transparent and clearly laid out public process, and he will deny the opportunity for our governmental employees that we have hired and the individuals that we have appointed to do the duty that we have entrusted them to do. Now, let me address the letters from Churchill Downs and Kosare Charities. I'll start with Churchill Downs. I love Wagner's Pharmacy. I say that all the time. I regularly eat there. It's my favorite place to eat in the district. Many of you may know Wagner's Pharmacy, or you've heard of it because it is entering into its 103rd year of business. My office naturally has a relationship with Churchill Downs since Churchill Downs is in my district. On October 16th, before we introduced the resolutions as new business to council, we emailed a letter that identified to our contact at Churchill Downs that we were starting the landmarking process and inviting them to work with my office through the process. We had correspondence, they had received it, we talked about this. I have that printed off here as well for anyone who would like to see it. We also sent that same letter to Wagner's Pharmacy. And while Churchill Downs' letter states that they are the owner of the property, I do want to point out some facts because it is a little bit more murky than that. In 2002, before merger, Churchill Downs deeded the land through an industrial revenue bond, or IRB, to Louisville Metro, a move that would allow Churchill Downs to become tax exempt. Aside from taxes paid to JCPS, Churchill Downs does not pay property tax. This isn't new news. But this payment in lieu of taxes, or pilot, results in Louisville Metro currently owning the property. In my opinion, this tax exemption gives Louisville Metro a say in what happens on that property. Churchill Downs also states in their letter that the current location is not Wagner's original location. This may be true, but part of this beautiful process is the extensive research that the Office of Planning does around each landmark. Here I have the wonderfully informative documents, the reports from the ones that we had passed last year. They're thick, they have a lot of information, they're full of footnotes and photos. They're wonderful, and I would love to share them with you. If we allow this veto to stand, we lose the ability to gain this record and have it on, or gain this knowledge and have it on record. Why would we give up the ability to gain this information? It doesn't hurt anything. I also feel compelled to mention that while there hasn't been any proposed development on this property, I have no intention of using this landmark status to fight future development. Wagner's is surrounded by surface lots, which many of you have probably parked in if you went to an event at Churchill Downs. I would love to have more density in my district and see these lots developed. I want that to be clear. Now on to Kosare Charities. I received a message from someone at Kosare Charities saying that they appreciated Manual Stadium's landmarking and that they were interested in exploring their own designation to celebrate their 100th anniversary in 2026. Understanding that the entire landmarking process takes 6 months to a year, I wanted to get a jump start on the process. My eagerness led to my misunderstanding of what this person was asking for, but nonetheless, I knew that my office would be holding their hand through the entire process because it's painless, and we're happy to be there and work with them. We worked closely with JCPS throughout the process to landmark Manual Stadium. Initially, we proposed to landmark the entire stadium, but we worked with them to dial that back, and instead of landmarking the entire stadium, we only landmarked their gate. We felt like this was a wonderful compromise, to acknowledge this culturally significant space while also being respectful to the business owner and making them comfortable in the process. When I recently spoke with Cosair Charities, I offered scaling back the scope of their landmark to the statue and fountain in front of their building instead of the entire campus. I'm completely sympathetic to that Cosair's campus includes a multitude of other incredible nonprofit organizations. I do not want to impede the work that they are doing. Unfortunately, if we don't override this veto, we cannot continue the process of exploring how we can work together to achieve a way to honor this institution. The process is the opportunity to make concerns, support, and any other information public knowledge. This is the process. We're simply starting it. Regardless, this has been a wonderful learning opportunity for me. My next batch of landmarking resolutions will be accompanied with a letter of support from the owner. At the end of the day, these resolutions are not taking food out of anyone's mouths. They're not housing anyone that does not have shelter. They're not displacing anyone or creating hardship. But I am aghast at how much time and unnecessary controversy has resulted in these two landmarking resolutions. There was nothing nefarious or ill-intended with these resolutions. I didn't try to hide anything. Those resolutions were distributed on 2 different public agendas, and they were voted on 2 separate occasions by Metro Council. I spoke to both of these in a committee meeting. I'm happy to provide the public video links to show that. If you would like to indulge Mayor Greenberg in his belief that Metro Council did not make a good decision, then I urge you to stand with the veto. If you would like to move forward with our decision to entrust the Landmarks Commission to do the job that they were appointed to do and let the Office of Planning do what they were hired to do, then I urge you to vote yes. Preservation is important. Protecting our city's essential history, vibrant history is vital. And I'm almost done. But last fall, I created a campaign in my district, and it's called How I Used to Look. And that uses historical photos to show how a place used to look. This is what one of those images looks like. Ideally, they'd be hung across the street so you can see from that vantage point, this is what it looked like, this is what it looks like today. If you can see this image, and I don't know if you can look up on the screen, but take a moment and just guess where this is. Now, you probably don't recognize this building because it no longer exists. This building no longer exists. If you've been to 3rd and Central and you've been to Cardinal Station, maybe you visited the Starbucks. That is this building. I'm asking you to override this veto and let this process play out. Thank you.
Is there any other discussion? I don't have the queue up here. Where is he? Councilman Pizzantini.
Thank you,
Now
Mr.
have the
President. First of all, I want to start with areas of agreement. I think we have asked people to be more forward-thinking in landmarking, and I want to say I know that that is what my colleague is attempting to do, and that's good. So I don't want to take away from intent here. I'm going to come back to a word at the end of this, and that's miscommunication, okay? And I think that's what happened here. I don't think there's necessarily malice. I think this was simply a case of miscommunication. The other examples that were given that we voted on, many of which were public properties. We can landmark all the public properties we want, right? But we are government. We are government agents, and we need to be very, very, very careful about the signal it sends to the private sector and private property owners when we initiate a process that, by design, requires the government to put restrictions on a piece of privately owned land or building without that private property owner's at minimum knowledge and preferable consent. Okay. I know zoning cases were mentioned. Other than zoning policy changes, every zoning case that comes across us is initiated by the property owner. There is a reason for that. I don't think any of us or any of our constituents want us to start throwing zoning cases out there on people's privately owned property. As far as Churchill Downs, I am not a fan of the IRB. The IRB is a done deal, as my colleague said, old news, and it is what it is. But let me make no mistake of it. We do not own Churchill Downs. It is an IRB that did this really funky mechanism that was agreed to before I had even moved to Louisville. Because we do not approve what Churchill Downs does with any other part of that building. They don't come to us for approval when they're expanding Millionaires Row. They don't come to us for approval when they're building up different sections of it. They go through the process and they build it. Right? We are not their owners. Landmarks, of course, by definition, do prevent development. That's the purpose of landmarking. They put at least significant restrictions on what people can do with that private property when you're moving forward. Again, I'll say this was miscommunication. I'll say that because I have the text message that came from the staff member from COSAIR Charities, and nowhere in it does it mention landmarking or the landmark process. It does use words like, I want to chat with you about the marker you did at Manual Stadium. It says, I would love for us to do something together. Let's schedule a time to have you on a tour. It doesn't make the request to begin this process. And I don't know about you all, but I have heard over and over from the leadership of COSAIR Charities that they were unaware of this. Again, miscommunication. Do I think any of my colleagues intended to subvert COSAIR Charities? I don't believe that. I believe this was simply miscommunication. And I think we all, I know myself, will take a bit of responsibility here. I did not and have never asked when a landmark case has come up, was the property owner informed? I didn't ask. I assumed. I should not assume. And from now on, I won't assume. I'll ask or make sure somebody else does on the record. Okay? So that was my responsibility. I probably should have done that. But I made an assumption because in prior cases, that was always the case. So I think we have a miscommunication, an exception here. It was caught by the mayor. He's vetoed it. And we should vote no in overriding the veto. Not because there's anything wrong with the intentions of my colleague or not because of any of that, just because it sets a bad precedent. There was some miscommunication here, and then we should move forward with our eyes wide open in how we do this process in the future. Thank you, Mr. President.
Councilman Winkler.
Thank you, Mr. President. I think that Councilman Biaggiantini made some excellent points, particularly around being careful as government and putting restrictions on people's property. I certainly understand and appreciate and don't necessarily disagree. I would say we have done that before. I mean, last year we banned the sale of retail pets as an example, and that is a restriction that we put upon established entities. So it's not unprecedented. That doesn't make it a great practice, but I certainly understand the argument. I also think, in regards to Councilwoman Chappell's point with the landmarking process, I mean, to an extent, we created the situation that we're in here. A year and a half ago, we passed a piece of legislation intended to stop the weaponization of landmarking, right? And we ask in that we be proactive and that you cannot landmark things after a development plan has been submitted, and that if you want to landmark something, you need to be proactive. My concern with supporting the veto, right, and rejecting this resolution is if we have closed the avenue of landmarking something once a development plan is filed, and then we also say if the property owner doesn't want it, then you also can't pursue it, then the only avenue that remains for anything to be landmarked is if the current owner wants to landmark it. I don't know whether that's the right or the wrong answer, right? I just think it's something we should contemplate with our decision here today. And would ask all of you to support. I will be voting in support of Councilwoman Chappell. Again, I do agree there's probably a communication issue, all right? I think, again, Councilman Piagentini makes some excellent points. I do, however, also think that we have a process for this to play through. We created that process, and I'm going to vote in support of that process. Thank you.
Colleagues, because the computer systems aren't working properly, is there anyone else that would like to speak? All right.
President.
You have the floor, sir.
Thank you, President. Just very quickly, this for me is not a vote in support of the administration and against my colleague or vice versa at all. I think there's a lot of points that have been made here that are reasonable. I think there were people who were asleep at the wheel here. Many of these companies, both of these companies, have people that watch what we do and know what's being said, and it was very clearly said and done in this body. And there were people asleep at the wheel, and they have told me they were asleep at the wheel. So I think, I'm not saying it's anybody necessarily's fault or anything like that. I also, frankly, and I'll just say, I think the process could have just played out, and we could have come to a compromise, and this thing would end. I'm going to vote no in support of the mayor, not because I'm supporting the mayor and against my colleague, but because I think it's the quickest way to move on from this and move forward. So I want to encourage my colleague to continue to be proactive, to landmark, and you've already said you've learned lessons, and we'll move forward with those lessons, and I appreciate that. Thank you.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, this is yes, ma'am. You have the floor, madam.
Sorry, I was just having some difficulty. I was choking on some water earlier. I'm so sorry. I just want to remind folks that a yes is to override the veto. A no is to let the veto stand. Okay.
Thank you. Councilwoman Parrish-Wright.
Yes, thank you. Councilwoman Chappell answered part of my question. The other thing is, one of the things that Councilwoman Tammy Hawkins and Barbara Shanklin have shared with me is that we typically follow the leadership of the people who are in the district, and I've seen you all practice that. And I know that the ball didn't necessarily drop with Councilwoman Chappell. There was a problem with the leadership and things going up the chain, and it's important to know that I have never seen someone be so detailed about the work that they're doing, and I respect the work that you've put in. And we know that this is symbolic in many ways because people feel whatever way, but I just want to commend your efforts and tell you that I will be voting yes to support you, and not because I have issues with Greenberg, but I'm very positive about the work you put into this. And it's not a final decision, it just sends it through the process. Thank you.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, again, just so we're clear, a yes vote is to override the veto. A no vote lets the veto stand. Madam Clerk, open the roll call.
No.
Thank you, sir. One moment.
Thank you.
We just do a voice vote? Voice vote?
Sure will. Well, maybe. Okay. Council member, you recorded. Councilmember Hawkins?
Yes.
Councilmember Shanklin?
Yes.
Councilmember Parrish-Wright?
Yes.
Councilmember Herndon?
No.
Councilmember Purvis?
No.
Councilmember Leninger?
Yes.
Councilmember McCraney? No. Councilmember Reno Weber?
Present.
Councilmember Owen?
No.
Councilmember Raymond?
Yes.
Councilmember Kramer? Councilmember Joseph?
No.
Councilmember Syme?
No.
Councilmember Bast?
No.
Councilmember Chapel?
Yes.
Councilmember Reed?
No.
Councilmember Winkler? Councilmember Parker? Councilmember Piagentini?
No.
Councilmember Benson?
No.
Thank you, sir. Councilmember Rui?
No.
Councilmember Bratcher?
No.
Councilmember Hudson?
No.
Councilmember Mulvey Woolridge?
No.
Councilmember Batchon?
No.
Councilmember Ackerson?
No.
I have 8 yes votes, 17 no votes, and 1 present vote.
The mayor's veto stands.
I'm sorry, Mr. President. The count is 7 yes votes, 17 no votes, and 1 present vote.
So the mayor's veto stands. The next item is item number 22. A reading of that, Madam Clerk.
A resolution directing Landmarks Commission staff to begin the landmarks review process for the historic CoSair for Kids location at 982 Eastern Parkway. Read in full.
That item is now before us. Again, this is a vote to override the veto. It takes 18 votes to do so. Even though there's only going to be 25 votes, it still takes 18, 2/3 of the majority of the full council. This is, again, going to be a no vote means you uphold the veto. A yes vote means you want to override the veto. Ms. Chappell, would you like to speak to this one, or have you already?
I'm going to read that whole thing again because you guys weren't listening. Just kidding. Vote away.
Councilmember Benson?
No.
Councilmember Purvis? Councilmember Bratcher?
I've got nay down here.
I'm sorry, sir. Our system's going quite slow today, so sorry.
Nay, no.
Okay. Change the screen for me.
I have an abstention.
Mr. President, you have,
I want to explain my vote.
I'm sorry, what did you say?
I want to explain my vote. I abstain.
Okay, one moment then. We have 6 yes votes, 17 no votes, 1 abstention, and 1 present vote. And
Councilwoman Shanklin, you'd like the floor?
Yeah, I'm explaining my abstention because I have a relationship with CoSair Shriners, and they do have a piece of property in my district, and they're very active in the district. And so I just want to make sure that it's on record that I do have a good relationship with them.
Thank you. The mayor's veto stands. Madam Clerk, a reading of item number 23.
An ordinance appropriating $4,000 from neighborhood development funds in the following manner: $2,000 each from Districts 15 and 21 through the Office of Management and Budget to the Louisville Community Design Center, Inc. for costs associated with the Lucille Leggett Neighborhood Institute. As amended, read in full.
Madam Clerk, you got the who motioned correctly? Fantastic. Is there any discussion on this? Councilwoman Parker, I believe this came out of your committee.
Yes, the only reason it went to old business because it was amended to add more dollars, and I'll let Councilwoman Rui speak to it.
Councilwoman Rui.
Thank you very much. So this is, for those of you who are not familiar with this organization, this is Louisville Community Design Center, which you may know better as the Center for Neighborhoods. That's the original name that they were incorporated under, so it gets confusing. But the Neighborhood Institute, Lucille Leggett Neighborhood Institute, has been around for at least 15 years. And it's a leadership development institute for members of our community. And they pull members from every council district. And what we are asking to sponsor right now is 2 12-week programs. So that'll be a total of 50 people that will be going through this program. And I'm a graduate of it. Councilwoman Chapel is a graduate of it. And we both feel like we got a whole lot out of it. Apparently we did. We got elected. So I'm asking you for your support to bring them up to their $11,000 that they're asking for.
Mr. President.
Any further discussion?
Mr. President, this is Sonia, the clerk.
Yes, ma'am.
Before we start, can we make the First Amendment, Councilwoman Rui, the paperwork was changed to change the dates? So can we make that amendment before we start with the other?
Yes, and I'd also like to add that Councilman Hudson told me he would like that $1,000.
They'll have to.
He's in the queue, but I think what we're going to do is we're going to amend the language first.
Okay.
Is there a motion to amend the language that's been referenced? And a second? All those in favor of the amendment, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? It is amended. Let's go to the queue for discussion. Councilman Hudson, you have the floor.
$1,000 from 23.
Councilman Winkler, you have the floor.
Yeah, I would just like to echo actually the comments that Councilman Hudson made in Committee of the Whole in terms of how effective this organization has been in helping several HOAs in my district get reestablished or established initially, and so 500 from District 17, please.
Councilwoman Shamika Parrish-Wright.
1,300 from District 3, please.
All right. Anyone else in the queue? All right, let's get something straight here, folks. The computer's on the fritz again, so raise your hand and you'll get called for discussion. Councilman Owen.
1,000 from District 9.
Councilman Syme.
Thank you. 500, District 13.
Councilwoman Hawkins.
1,000, District 1.
Councilwoman Shanklin.
1,000, District 2.
Any other discussion? What's the total
Our
right now?
total is $10,300. That remains, $1,500 remains.
500 for 24.
Okay, that takes us, what, about 500 short? Councilwoman Parker. There should be no more discussion because we've now hit the mark. Item to amend and add in the new money. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, that passes. We have the final amended version here with the full amount before us. Madam Clerk, will you open the roll call?
Yes.
And then change the screen. Councilman Stewart, I got your vote. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Councilmember Hawkins. Councilmember Shanklin. Councilmember Purvis. Yes. Councilmember Bast. It's not. I'm telling you, it's just the system being slow.
Just tell them.
Are you a yes? Thank you. Change the screen for me. Mr. President, you have 25 yes votes.
The ordinance is adopted. Madam Clerk, a reading of item number 24.
25. An ordinance relating to the zoning of properties located at 703, 707, 709, 711, 727, 731, and 747 East Jefferson Street, 2018, 2020 South Shelby Street, and 2023, 2025, 2027 South Clay Street, and containing approximately 2.45 acres and being in Louisville Metro, case number 24 zone 0004. Read in full.
The item is properly before us. Is there any discussion? Councilman Owen, came out of your committee.
Thank you, President. This is the Rabbit Hole Expansion Project. Existing use of the site is industrial commercial. The proposed use of the site is the same, industrial commercial. Parts of the block are currently C2 in the traditional neighborhood form district, and parts are EZ1. This requested zoning change would change the entire block to EZ1. The Rabbit Hole Distillery intends to expand with event space and retail space, including gift shop, bar, and tasting area. They're keeping two existing structures on the site, one on Jefferson Street and one on Clay Street, that were determined to have architectural significance, while some of the other structures will be removed or demolished. Planning Commission met on July 11th and November 24th, where there was a motion to recommend approval of the change in zoning from C2 to EZ1, and that passed by a vote of 7-0. Passed out of committee with 7 yes votes. This project is in Council District 4, Councilman Herndon's district. I'll turn it over to him if he has some comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Owen. I approve.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, this is requires a roll call vote. Madam Clerk, open the voting.
Councilmember Benson?
Yes.
Councilmember Parrish Wright?
Yes.
Councilmember Reno Weber?
Yes.
Council, one moment. Change the screen for me. Mr. President, you have 24 yes vote and 1 present vote.
The ordinance is adopted. Madam Clerk, a reading of item number 25.
An ordinance relating to the zoning of a property located at 7203 East Manslick Road containing approximately 6.77 acres and being in Louisville Metro, case number 24 zone 0079, read in full.
Is there a second? The item is properly before us. Any discussion? Councilman Owen, this committee, your committee.
Thank you, President Ackerson. This is a 40-lot townhouse development. Existing use is residential. Proposed use is also residential. Current zoning is R4 single family, and the proposed zoning is planned residential district. Property is a major preliminary subdivision. It's currently one undeveloped parcel, and the proposal is for a 40-lot subdivision with attached townhouse-style homes. The Highview neighborhood plan applied to the site where a residential area was recommended. The development plan proposed an extension of Rome Beauty Way to Brayburn Ridge Road, which would then connect to Manslick Road by Old Bates Road. Planning Commission had a public hearing on November 21st where there was a motion to recommend a change in zoning that passed by a vote of 5-2, passed out of committee with 7 yes votes. This is in Council District 23. Councilmember Hudson, would you like to comment?
You have the floor, sir.
Thank you, Mr. President. Yeah, I appreciate the conversations we had in committee on this. I did have some concerns about the traffic on the intersection there at East Manslick, and the applicant was able to address those to my satisfaction, so I will be voting yes on this and would encourage the same. Thank you.
Any further discussion? This is an ordinance requiring a roll call vote. Madam Clerk, please open the voting.
Councilmember Benson?
Yes.
Change the screen for me. Mr. President, you have 25 yes votes.
The ordinance is adopted. Madam Clerk, a reading of item number 26.
An ordinance relating to the zoning of property located at 6703 and 6705 Rocky Lane and 6707 Beulah Church Road containing approximately 1.24 acres and being in Louisville Metro, case number 24 zone 0081, read in full.
That item is brought before us. Any discussion? Councilman Owen?
Thank you, President Ackerson. This is Beulah Crossing. Existing use is residential, proposed use is commercial. Existing zoning is R4 single-family residential in the neighborhood form district, traditional neighborhood form district, and the proposed zoning is C1 commercial. This is a proposed restaurant with a drive-through. It's part of a larger development plan. The 8 adjacent parcels were rezoned for a higher residential use and commercial use in a recent zoning in 2023. Primary access will be from Rocky Lane, which provides connection to both Beulah Church and Damascus Roads. Some areas of wetlands have been proposed to be preserved with tree preservation along Damascus Lane and to the rear of the property. The Planning Commission public hearing was held on November 21st, where there was a motion to recommend approval of the change in zoning from R4 to C1 that passed by a vote of 7-0. Passed out of the Planning and Zoning Committee with 8 yes votes. This is also in Council District 23. Councilman Hudson?
You have the floor, sir.
Thank you, Mr. President. Yeah, this is coming different from the Beulah Crossings project just because of the timing. This parcel of land, the owner held out a little longer than the other owner did. So it's just a timing issue. So I support it and encourage the same. Thank you.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, this is an ordinance that requires a roll call vote. Madam Clerk, please open the voting.
Councilmember Benson?
Yes. Thank you.
There you go.
Mr. President, you have 25 yes votes.
The ordinance is adopted. Madam Clerk, a reading of item number 27.
An ordinance relating to the zoning of properties located at 6101 through 6107 Southside Drive, 101 through 111 Steedley Drive, and 6312R Kinjoy Drive, containing approximately 11.78 acres and being a Louisville Metro case number 24 zone 0101, as amended, read in full.
Item is properly before us. Any discussion? Councilman Owen?
Thank you, Mr. President. This is the Fabricated Metals Expansion Project. This project is located in a suburban workplace form district. Existing use is commercial, proposed use is industrial. Existing zoning is C2, again, suburban workplace form district, and the proposed zoning is M3. There's a revised detailed development plan here with some revised binding elements, and Travis and Councilman Batchon and Councilwoman Rui, I think, will address some of those going forward. This is 8 contiguous parcels. The structures will be removed and demolished. The proposal is for 158,000 manufacturing structure where they will perform metal fabrication. The Planning Commission held a public hearing on November 21st where there was a motion to recommend approval of the change in zoning from C2 to M3, and that passed by a vote of 6-1. Passed out of committee with 6 yes votes, 1 no, and 1 present. This is in Council District 25. Councilman Batchon might like to speak to this.
You have the floor, sir.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would first like to make my comments go to Travis Feaster to add some amendments of binding elements that we are adding to this zoning case and get those in the record, and then I would like to touch on that afterwards.
Hello, everybody. Travis Feaster, Assistant County Attorney. The amendment is on the system, the proposed amendment. So I will not read everything to you, but I will sort of summarize what's going on there. The first is an amendment to binding element 4 sub D. Binding element 4 sub D deals with requiring applicants to provide a tree preservation plan. That's attached to basically every case, or a tree preservation plan that conforms with Chapter 10. We added some additional language, which is as follows. In addition to meeting Chapter 10 requirements, owner developers shall provide enhanced landscaping substantially similar to that shown in the attached Exhibit A, with exact placement and species to be chosen in consultation with Office of Planning staff. Related, there's an Exhibit A now attached. That exhibit has 2 pages. The first page shows a sort of basic land development code compliant plan, minimum done. And the second page shows the enhanced landscaping the applicant is offered. The next binding element is a new one, number 11. It reads, where possible, a developer property owner will request and attempt to schedule deliveries on site from Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. We've seen these on occasion, the delivery binding elements. It's tough to say all deliveries must occur 8 to 5 because what happens if one of your suppliers doesn't deliver from 8 to 5 on Monday to Friday? Now you can't get an essential element to your building, but they're at least going to make affirmative efforts to get those scheduled appropriately. The following two binding elements, binding element 12 is a unique one. 100 Steely Drive is the property that is directly across the street from their main entrance, so all the cars leaving will be shining their headlights directly into that property. The applicant is offering to work with that property owner to get some landscaping installed on that property, assuming the other property owner wants that and is open to it. Pretty unique. We've sort of seen some asks for that in the past, but this applicant's going to try to make that happen. It's a bit long-winded, but it creates the framework for that to occur. Binding elements 13 and 14 are use restrictions. They bind out a number of uses from the M2 and M3 uses respectively. I won't necessarily read all those, but they run the gamut from potentially hazardous uses to noisy ones, ones people don't generally like, et cetera. And then we have the standard binding element, which was there at committee but just got shifted down. Happy to answer any questions.
Any questions or comments regarding the motion to amend? Councilwoman Rui, you're in the queue.
Thank you very much. So let me start out by saying I will be voting no on this. I would like to thank Councilman Batchon for working on getting the amendments in there to bind out a lot of the uses. I worked on that also. And the odd thing about this, and I want in the public record, is that although this is in Councilman Batchon's district, across the street is all mine. And on the other side of it is very much all mine. So it affects my district very much. So I want to make sure that I represent my constituents in this. And the way, as we all know, truck traffic increases to go through residential areas because they're following, unfortunately, Google Maps. And Google Maps is going to send them through the residential area. I've tested it. I've had other people test it. They put in the address in that area, and it's going to take them right down 2nd Street, 3rd Street, Southside Drive, Steedley Drive. These are all residential areas. So based on that increase in truck traffic and the fact that we really do not want additional industrial in the area, I will be voting no on this. I leave it up to other council members to vote your consciences. We do not want this. I know the reality of it is it's right next to Naval Ordnance, which is already heavy industry. And I will continue to work to minimize the impact of any heavy industry that goes into that area at a later date to make sure that it is not actually fronting on Southside Drive. I make that to my constituents, but I realize that I cannot stop this. I will be voting no. And I ask you to vote your consciences on this. Thank you.
Councilman Reed, just for point of clarification.
Yes.
What we'll be voting on first is going to be the amendment to add the extra binding elements. You might be voting yes for that and then voting no on the whole thing.
I will be voting yes for those amendments, yes.
Okay, fantastic. Next in the queue is Councilman Batchon.
I think we need to, before I speak, I think we need to vote on the amendments, Mr. President.
That's fine. Any other discussion on the amendments? Hearing none, this is a motion that requires a voice vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right. The ayes have, anybody against? Nope, the ayes have it. It's now amended before us. You have the floor, sir.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just want to, I have some notes here that I want to kind of go over and establish just some clarity on the process of planning and zoning. And I would defer to Councilman Owen as well if I've misspoke here. First of all, this zoning case has taken a toll this week. I feel that there has been a lot of fear-mongering and misinformation spread on this topic through social media, through these chambers, through emails and correspondence. I believe that some of the colleagues have had added to this misinformation. We have particularly members that have said this is a great development for the community, but also are going to vote no today. Let me remind everyone that we need to consider today what we need to consider today. We must comply with the KRS 100.213 and vote based on the findings of fact to determine whether proposed rezoning is compliant with the 2040. Metro Council may rely upon findings of facts made by Planning Commission if it agrees with the Planning Commission's recommendations or its own alternative, and that's boldly, alternative finding of facts based on the record, if it disagrees with the Planning Commission's recommendation. We have a comprehensive plan for a reason, ladies and gentlemen. We set the rules and guidelines to follow for zoning changes. If these are followed and the zoning changes adhere to the comprehensive plan, more likely than not, your zoning change will be approved. Inconsistency in zoning practices lead to organizations not wanting to do business in our city. We set the rules. We have to be fair to the companies that follow them. I would like to speak to the constituents that have reached out and let you know I am empathetic with you. I hear you and your voice is heard. But I encourage you, please follow the process, because emails after the neighborhood meetings and phone calls after the neighborhood meetings are not on the record. And I want to follow the rules based on that. We cannot make judgments and decisions based on not on the record facts. Per state law, I cannot add the emails or phone calls to the record this evening for consideration of that decision. In making the final decision, Metro Council members may consider only the record made before the Planning Commission, which was held in November of 2024. I understand that this community is very diverse and has some significant language barriers. We've tried to address that with the Planning Commission during the committee. We are working on an extensive correspondence and fixing the language of how that will work. Fabricated Metals LLC is making a significant investment in this area. This community has been operating in an adjacent land since 1971. 250 employees from the neighborhood. Employees that from the diverse community speak 22 different languages from 18 different countries. These jobs are a lifeline to the community, and this rezoning will allow the company to hire even more. Long before I took office, this area and the site was designated a suburban workplace form district. A suburban workplace form district characterized by industrial, office uses where the buildings are set back from the street and landscape settings, so on and so forth. This applicant has shown willingness to work with the city on the binding elements, the unparalleled to any of that I've seen since I've been in office. Every concern is addressed with the binding elements. The applicant has even agreed to plant trees, as Travis said, in the neighbor's yard for the light pollution on the adjacent properties. That company doesn't even own that property because they wish to be a good community partner. We are working also with Public Works in upgrading the infrastructure on the roads that the trucks have to drive on. We have gone a long way here from where this was in committee. I think this is a good development for the district, and I am proud to vote yes. I ask that you do the same. Thank you. And I would defer to Councilman Owen if he's in the queue.
Councilman Chapel, you're next in the queue.
I'll make it brief. Let the process work is a rich turn of phrase for someone that just voted no twice when I asked for the same thing. Thank you.
Councilman Benson, you're in the queue and you have the floor, sir.
Thank you very much. I'm really surprised anybody wants to build in Louisville. And it's exciting because that's what I do in my life. I'm a tool maker. And most people don't realize our economy is based on a product. If you have no product, you know, Ford's looking at going to Oldham County and General Electric, I don't know what. I don't even know how General Electric ever got zoned here. Because in 1954, they turned Reynolds Metals down for wanting to build a research center on Newburgh Road. And the school I went to is called Aaron's Trade School. The guy who owned a company on 7th Street that made toilets and stuff, American Standard, is no longer here because nobody thought that we need toilets and we need jobs. And hey, this may be okay. We all be a community that we live here and we'll go to some other county to work. But I'm excited and I'm sure glad that somebody wants to do it. I'm a yes. Thank you.
I will ask, because again, the system, anyone else have any comments or discussion? Seeing none, Councilman Bashan?
I failed to mention something, and I think Travis and I talked about it this afternoon. We're rezoning to M3. We get a lot of these people reaching out saying it should be Easy 1. Easy 1, just for clarification, is a higher intensity of zoning than an M3. And we've omitted a lot of the binding, or we've added a lot of the binding elements in this to omit the hazardous materials and the things that are being compared to the Givaudan plant explosion. So I want to make sure that that is on the record as well for everybody that's listening.
Any other discussion?
Mr. President.
Yes, ma'am.
I have a
You have
comment.
the floor, madam.
Okay. When you're going to M3, then you know you can put anything in M3. It can be industrial, it can be sexual lounges, it can be anything. So what happens after a couple of years, they decide to change from what they're in and go to one of those lounges in the neighborhood. So can they, once they go in there as industrial, can they turn around and change it to something else in M3? Somebody tell me that.
County Attorney's Office?
I can address that. In that, so I know I didn't read the full list out. I can if that would be helpful, but adult entertainment is one of the uses they agreed to bind out. So no, that will not be an option on this property in the
It's
future.
M3.
I'm sorry?
Adult entertainment is in M3.
Yes, but they've agreed to bind that out in the binding element, so that will not be an option for them or a future property owner on the site.
So one of the other ones could not change it? They couldn't change to one of the others because it's a lot of stuff in M3.
There are quite a few uses they could still change to, but they also agreed to bind out quite a few as well.
So the binding element stands, what you're saying is the binding element would not allow them to change to anything but industrial.
So the binding elements list, I'm going to say it's about 25 or so uses in the M2 and M3 categories that they could not change to. There are still other things in M2 or M3 they could potentially change to if they wanted, but most of the sort of ones we traditionally think of as offensive or harmful or dangerous have been bound out.
And I have that concern because this is happening to my district, and they're going to M2, and we know that once it's M2 or M3, they might change it in a few years to anything, and then you're stuck with it. So that's a big concern, and I don't know if you know that or not. So,
May I respond to Dr. Shanklin?
You may respond.
Thank you. Councilwoman Shanklin, I was well aware of that, and that's why we proceeded with talking to the county attorney and binding those elements out, so those adult entertainment and certain things would not be allowed on that property for that zoning. The reason they're zoning this M3 is for the size of equipment that they have to use in that industry.
okay. One more thing. How many years would it be before they change it? Because they can change it. You know, you're saying not, but what if in 5 years they change it to something else? Do you have a limit on how long they can keep it under that, on that binding element?
So the standard binding element is attached to this case, the one that council often attaches to many cases. And so if they were to make any changes, that would violate any of its elements, right? If they were to increase the height of the building, the number of units, the density on the property, any use that would require something like a conditional use permit or a hearing. So a lot of things might end up coming back to council if they were to propose changes.
So it'd have to come back to council before it gets changed?
Not any change, but many changes would, yes.
Okay, you better make it all changes. I'm sorry.
Councilor Linder?
Yes. So a couple of things. One, I have urged people, that these things have to be in the record. People reached out to my office. I think we all had people reach out. And while I encourage people, you need to be in the record, I think we do need to recognize that there's, a significant failure that we can't redress for people who couldn't be in the record. And I think that's a big concern. I know that we have limitations on what we can consider, but I think we also need to think about the fact that if people are excluded from the process, and that is a failure of Louisville government, and we have excluded them from the process, that's a significant concern for the courts, possibly. So that's a concern I have here. I also, we only a few years ago rezoned this property. In the process of that rezoning, the former council person, that now Deputy Mayor Nicole George, they had originally asked for this higher level of industrial zoning, and they were willing to amend it down after hearing community concerns, after speaking with former councilwoman Nicole George. And now here we are a few years later, back to the original ask. I think there's a concern there in terms of sort of a, breadcrumbing from the original, we're going to amend it down, we're going to be a good neighbor, we're going to listen to community concerns, and then we have brought it back just a few years later. With respect to Councilman Batchon, I do plan to vote no on this.
Councilwoman Parrish Wright.
Thank you, Mr. President. I share the same concerns as Councilman Leninger just spoke about. Also, it was mentioned that there's over 200 jobs, 44 languages spoken, but the one community meeting or two was only in one language, and there was barriers. And I'm never going to be somebody that's against jobs. That's not what my no vote is about. It's about the process and it being not being clear to people missing the opportunity to join in this. I do value when people contact my office, whether it's before or after, because sometimes they don't find out about it. There's a very important community that is working hard, and not everyone can make these meetings. We've talked about in many other meetings how the lack of notices, the lack of information, the gaps in the digital divide that many of our districts deal with mean that you're not getting the bulk of the people. And I feel like, yes, I'm hearing the jobs were $25. I'm hearing some of the jobs were $15 an hour. But this is at the cost of a community that is reaching out to saying that a lot of them don't want it. And we don't know the reasoning behind it. So while I support us having industry and jobs and things like that, I don't think that it should come at the back of a community that majority is saying no. And with the language barrier, with the people who came to that meeting whose formal voice is not in record only because we lack translation services, that is a severe failure of what we're doing. I hope that we can get better about the processes, better about notifications of community meetings, better about making sure that there's at least in the main languages spoke an opportunity for people to participate so that we can come in here and make the best decision based on the information at hand. Thank you.
Councilwoman Rui.
Thank you. Just some additional background to put in there. So the next door to this property is a Vietnamese convent. They don't speak English. Across the street is Spanish-speaking people, and there was someone who tried to speak at the committee meeting, the commission meeting, and because they did not have a translator available, this person was not allowed to speak. And that brought up a lot of conversation in our planning and zoning committee about how they didn't even know how to use the translation services that are available. So that was a grave miscarriage of the system right there. And our signs are all put out there in English, and our neighbors don't know and understand what they mean. So if one good thing comes out of this for our community, we've got a lot of people who want to be able to express their opinion and to know how this system works. So we hope to energize our constituents to learn about this and be able to get in there earlier in the process, because as noted, when you get to this point, we either get to vote yes, we get to vote no, Or, as Councilman Batshon and I did, we were able to work and get binding elements in there to make it better. But the actual yes, no, and the community input comes in so much earlier. So I hope our community is able to get those notifications and be able to participate in the system earlier so that they are able to speak out and have their voices heard. Thank you.
Anyone else with any questions or concerns, any comments? Seeing none, we have the amended ordinance before us. It will require a roll call vote. Madam Clerk, open the roll call.
Councilmember Benson?
Yes.
Mr. President, you have 18 yes votes and 6 no votes.
The ordinance is adopted. Madam Clerk, a reading of item number 28.
An ordinance relating to the zoning of property located at 120 North 42nd Street and containing approximately 0.12 acres in Bena Louisville Metro, case number 24, zone 0109. Read in full.
The item's probably before us. Any discussion? Councilman Owen?
Thank you, President Ackerson. This is 120 North 42nd Street rezoning. Existing use is residential. Proposed use is also residential. The existing zoning is R5 single-family residential in the traditional neighborhood form district, and the proposed zoning is R7 multifamily residential. One parcel developed with a single-family structure. The structure is to be preserved and reused, and the proposal is to have 3 residential units within that one structure. Planning Commission held a public hearing on November 21st where there was a motion to recommend denial of the change in zoning from R5 to R7 that passed by a vote of 7-0. That passed out of the Planning and Zoning Committee with 8 yes votes. Oh, yeah, and I'll just say a yes vote tonight would be to uphold the Planning Commission's denial of this request to rezone. This is in Council District 5. Councilwoman Purvis would probably like to speak to it.
Councilman Purvis, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm going to be voting yes to uphold the Planning Commission's denial of this request. It has caused many concerns and issues within this block. There's limited parking there. It is a single structure. It's going to be a little impossible to imagine 3 separate families living in such a small area, so I would encourage my colleagues to support me and vote yes. Thank you.
Any other questions or discussions? Seeing none, this is an ordinance that requires a roll call vote. Madam Clerk, open the roll call, please.
Councilmember Benson?
Yes.
Mr. President, you have 24 yes votes.
The ordinance is adopted. Madam Clerk, a reading of item number 29.
An ordinance relating to the zoning of property located at 338 North 25th Street containing approximately 1.44 acres in Bena Louisville Metro, case number 24, zone 0085. Read in full.
Items properly before us. Any discussion? Councilman Owen?
Thank you, President Ackerson. This is Porkland Barbecue Project. The existing use is institutional and the proposed use is commercial. Existing zoning is R6 multifamily residential in the traditional neighborhood form district, and the proposed zoning is C1 commercial. It's one parcel developed with an institutional structures, one structure currently in use as a restaurant that's only operating on Fridays currently, and the proposal is to have that restaurant operate full-time. Planning Commission held a public hearing on December 5th where there was a motion to recommend approval of the change in zoning from R6 to C1, and that passed by a vote of 9-0, passed out of our committee with 9 yes votes. This is also in Council District 5. Councilwoman Purvis, I'm sure, would like to speak to this as well.
Councilwoman Purvis, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would encourage my colleagues to vote in favor of this. Love City is an entity within District 5 that has a lot of community partnership, and they do a lot in the community of Portland. And this is something that the stakeholders and the majority of the people that I've spoken with in Portland, that they would support. And so I'm asking that we approve this so that they can remain open for the entire week if they so desire. Thank you.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, this is an ordinance that requires a roll call vote. Madam Clerk, open the roll.
Councilmember Benson?
Yes.
Okay, you can change it. Thank you. Mr. President, you have 24 yes votes.
The ordinance is adopted. Madam Clerk, a reading of item number 30.
And appointment of Dion Templeton to the Affordable Housing Trust Fund Board. Term expires December 31st, 2027. Read in full.
Second.
The items before us, or the appointments before us. Is there any discussion? Councilwoman Purvis?
Thank you, Mr. President. I am going to make a motion to send this back to committee, government oversight, so that we can discuss this further. I know that in the future, possibly we'll be working with Councilwoman Chapo to look at the bylaws of this board. I perceived a conflict with this appointee, being in the development industry and possibly seeking funding from the board that she has been appointed to serve on. So I think we need to look at revising those bylaws. And so therefore, I'm going to make a motion to send this back to the committee.
Any discussion on the motion?
I do, Mr. Can I make a comment?
Feel free.
And I wanted Councilwoman Purvis to know that sitting during this process, I just don't understand the backstory of this because there were many appointments made with people having many connections. And I get that we all could have asked our questions, but only Ms. Templeton was asked this question. Ms. Templeton was honest. And we have a limited amount of minority people that are doing this type of development work. And the ordinance allows for that position, and it hasn't been changed yet. If this is something that folks want to fix, fix it. But it's not fair to take this out on this applicant, and unless I'm missing something, it just seems like this person has been chosen for this situation. I have no previous history with Ms. Templeton. I don't know her. I couldn't pick her out in the lineup. But my issue is that there's been discrimination with her specifically that I don't understand, and I haven't been convinced while I was on the Government Accountability Committee why this different for her, because we also approved a bunch of people that we didn't even ask those questions to in other situations. So anyway, I want us to get done with this. We've dragged this on. We lost somebody, 2 people last year who were appointed due to us dragging our feet on some of these processes. I do read resumes, and sometimes those resumes are hardly read, and some people only submitted a sentence. She came here, she answered the questions, we went back and forth, so why are we dragging this one applicant? Let's approve this person, and then let's go and fix the process as we have an opportunity to do so. Thank you.
Any other discussion on the motion to send this back to?
Yeah, I'd like to respond to my colleague
You have the floor,
here.
madam.
When I look in the mirror, I look like Dion Templeton. We're both African-American women. I do not know her. I couldn't pick out in the lineup. But I think that it's important to do what's right. Shame on us for not reviewing resumes, for not looking at what's going on with these people. And I agree with you. We have put people on boards that should not be, that are there to benefit their own interests, and it just should not be. And it's unfortunate that she has to be the example. And so right is right and wrong is wrong. Like I said, I don't know her. I wouldn't know her if she was standing in front of me. But I think it's time for us to do what's right. There are times when people make money off of being affiliated with certain boards and so forth. And some people, that's their only interest. And, I don't like that, but I did ask the question. I asked her, I said, knowing that she's a developer, I said, well, will you be seeking funding from this board? And she answered, honestly, she said yes. And so I perceive that, as a conflict, no matter if she was man, woman, white, black, that is a conflict. And, I understand what you're saying, why are we fixing it now when it should have been fixed before? But now is the time now is to do what's right. Thank you.
Councilman Hawkins?
I have a quick question. Do you have a timeline on this, Councilwoman Purvis? Because my only question is, she was honest when she came. No one else was asked that question. And I think that this has been drug out. I sat on the Affordable Trust Fund Board, and the ordinance, we wrote that ordinance. We did that. We put in there that anyone that sits on that board, excluding myself, could get funds if they had a development. So it seems as if we're kind of punishing her for something that we did. Nevertheless, I wasn't here when that was done. I just would like to know what is the timeline, because as everybody else is being able to still get that opportunity, sitting on that board, if she's able to get that opportunity, I would like to see her get that opportunity, because it's 1 million people on that board right now that's getting it. I would like for her to get that same opportunity, because maybe out of everybody else, she was honest. So I'm just kind of looking at it, from both sides, but I kind of want to know the timeline. I want to know, I don't know if I should be asking you that, or if I should be asking my colleague, Ms. Chaplin, that. I just want to make sure that, are we going to drag this out longer, or do we need to go ahead and, what are we going to do with this? Because if not, that's going to determine my vote.
Yeah, that would be a Councilwoman Chappell's response. I'm hoping that this would go quickly, but I'm sincerely hoping that once these bylaws are revised, that she will still be interested, because we do need her expertise for affordable housing. So I'm hoping that she will still be interested in serving.
So, Brother Kenna, okay. So basically, we're trying to hold her back until we get the ordinance, so she's not able to get funds.
So this is what I'd like to know. If we approved her to be on the board, Jennifer, Councilwoman Chappell, if we approved her to be on the board, can we still go through the process of revising the bylaws that would state that they cannot seek those funds?
President, can I
If-
speak?
If I can speak.
Hold on here, for just a second here. We got a question, the question posed to who?
I'm sorry, Mr. President. Councilwoman Chappell.
Can I speak?
Councilman Chappell? Folks, my problem is this computer system, I got no cue. So I'm
Okay.
looking around and responding to people. I know Councilman Reed wants to speak. Councilman Hudson wants to speak. I think the county attorney, I've just been told, wants to speak. Nope.
I think that we're the governing body. We put the ordinance in place. We should be able to go in and amend it, fix it.
You wanna
I
respond?
believe my colleague, Councilman Owens, pretty much made that clear, right? On how we can go about doing that after the fact.
Councilman Chappell, would you like to? Councilman Chappell, would you like to
Thank you.
respond?
I
And then
definitely look
Councilman
forward
Reed's
to
next.
looking into this. That board, if I'm targeted with this appointment and this board and redoing this board, I think that's giving priority to this over all of the boards. It's not something that I'm saying that I won't get to, but it's definitely not something that I'm just going to put at the top of my agenda, because it certainly doesn't fit the vibe that I'm going for. I think that we need to do a holistic view of all of the boards and commissions, understanding what they do, and then coming up with a targeted approach. But I'm not opening the door for us to be picking off boards and commissions on a one-off basis. And even then, if you think about changing legislation, we've got to draft that, we have to introduce it in committee, we have to talk about it in council. Like, that's still months before this woman gets appointed, and like, y'all, move on.
Councilman Reed, you are next in my queue.
Thank you, Mr. President. And I want to comment, first of all, compliment my colleague, Councilman Purvis, for flagging this several months ago. This is I can't believe we're actually even debating this. I mean, this is a direct conflict of interest. I mean, putting someone on a board and then giving her the ability to go in and try to borrow money from this board or I mean, to me, it's just a complete conflict of interest that I, in my right mind, couldn't vote to put her on this board. So I think it's ridiculous that we would even consider this. So I think we should table this and reconsider and go back and fix the bylaws. But she shouldn't be on this board by no means. Thank you.
Councilman Hudson, you're next in my queue.
Thank you, Mr. President. I don't know if this is just general discussion or if it elevates to a point of order, but there's a motion that is in order on the floor just to send this to committee. And the conversations that we're having are probably more appropriate in the committee, in my opinion. To impugn this woman's character without her being here, I think is doing her an injustice, and I would move the question.
Well, let's talk about this. We have the motion to send it back to committee. So let's limit the discussion solely, should it go back to committee or should it be heard now?
Heard now.
Okay, so anyone have a comment regarding that, about sending it back? Councilman Hawkins.
I say we hear it now, and I make a motion to, how would I do that? Would I make a motion to untable it?
No. What we'll do is we'll have discussion about the motion to send it back to committee. When that discussion is over, what's going to happen then is we're going to vote on that motion, and that will either be yes, and it goes back to committee, or it will be no, and it will then be on the floor for further discussion. Does that make sense to everybody? You got a motion to call the question on, okay, there we go. All those in favor of calling the question on the motion to send it back to committee? Aye. Any in opposition? Hearing no opposition?
Opposition is sending it back?
No, I'm calling the question.
Okay.
Hearing no, question's been called. This is a yes is to send it back to committee. A no is to keep it here on the floor. Madam Clerk, open the roll.
Councilmember Benson.
Yes.
Mr. President. Councilmember Rena Weber. Okay, Councilman, no. Make sure we got them all. Okay, yeah, I'm ready. Mr. President, you have 14 yes votes and 10 no votes.
It's going back to committee. The next item of the business is new business. As you leave the chambers, please do so quietly so the clerk can read new business. I would ask that all those council members who would like to make announcements, please remain in the chambers and request to speak on your system under announcements. New business comprises of items 32 through 45. Will the clerk read those items into the assignments to the committee?
I gotta make an announcement. I'll be there.
The following legislation was assigned to Appropriations Committee. Item 32, an ordinance appropriating $18,642 from neighborhood development funds in the following manner. $13,981.50 from District 16 and $4,660.50 from District 17 through the Office of Management and Budget to the Jefferson County Public Education Foundation, Inc., for the installation of a ramp at Norton Commons Elementary School playground. Item 33, an ordinance appropriating $1,650 from the neighborhood development funds in the following manner: $1,650 from District 2 through the Office of Management and Budget to Mental Health, Lou and You, Inc. for operating costs for their Mind Body Wellness program. Item 34, an ordinance rescinding ordinance number 218, Series 24, appropriating $25,000 from District 14 Neighborhood Development Funds through the Office of Management and Budget to the Food Literacy Project for the sponsorship of Gather for the Garden 2025. Item 35, an ordinance appropriating $10,000 from Neighborhood Development Funds in the following manner: $10,000 from District 13 to Louisville Metro Parks for costs associated with the annual Forest Fest Bluegrass Festival. Item 36, an ordinance appropriating $8,000 from Neighborhood Development Funds in the following manner: $8,000 from District 21 through the Office of Management and Budget to Preston Area Business Alliance, Inc. for operating funds for salaries for the Executive Director and part-time administrator. The following legislation was assigned to Budget Committee. Item 37, an ordinance amending ordinance number 101, Series 2024, and ordinance number 100, Series 2024, relating to the fiscal year 2024 through 2025 capital and operating budgets, respectively, by transferring $175,000 from District 7 Neighborhood Development Fund to the District 7 Capital Infrastructure Fund. The following legislation was assigned to Equity, Community Affairs, Housing, Health, and Education Committee. Item 38, a resolution authorizing the mayor to accept $30,000 of funding from the Kentucky Department of Public Health through the Hepatitis Grant Program to be administered by Louisville Metro Public Health and Wellness. Item 39, a resolution authorizing the mayor to accept $14,232 of funding from the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services through the Language Access Device for Preparedness Efforts Grant Program to be administered by Louisville Metro Public Health and Wellness. The following legislation was assigned to Labor and Economic Development Committee. Item 40, a resolution pursuant to the capital and operating budget ordinances approving the appropriation to fund the following non-competitively negotiated professional service contract for Louisville Metro Public Health and Wellness, LMPHW, concerning service at LMPHW, Medical Director, Norton Healthcare, Inc., $60,000. Item 41, a budget ordinances approving the appropriation to fund the following non-competitively negotiated professional service contract for Louisville Metro Public Health and Wellness concerning mental health screenings for Healthy Start participants. Dr. Anicia Williams, $61,000. Item 42, resolution ratifying and approving a letter of agreement to be effective from the date of approval for the Louisville Jefferson County Metro Council for the duration of the current collective bargaining agreement, CBA, between Louisville Jefferson County Metro Government, hereinafter referred to as Metro Government, and the Central Midwest Regional Council of Carpenters, hereinafter referred to as Union, on behalf of the members of the Codes and Regulations Department, Community Development, Planning and Design, Alcoholic Beverage Control, and Solid Waste Management Services, which has an expiration date of June 30th, 2028. Item 43, resolution pursuant to the capital and operating budget ordinances approving the appropriation to fund the following non-competitively negotiated sole source contract for Louisville Metro Police Department, LMPD, concerning analysis of police interactions to improve effectiveness and equity, Sigma Squared, Inc., for $350,000. The following legislation was assigned to Planning and Zoning Committee. Item 44, an ordinance amending the guidelines to the new Review Overlay District as set forth in Chapter 162 and the Louisville Metro Code of Ordinances, LMCO. Item 45, resolution authorizing or requesting the Planning Commission review the Louisville Metro land development and code regulations with regard to financial institutions. Read in full.
We next have announcements. We'll start off with Councilwoman Parrish Wright. You have the floor, madam.
Thank you, Mr. President. I am excited to announce something happy to be about, the clothing drive to give to those who are exiting Louisville Metro Department of Corrections. Councilman Ben Reno Weber is supporting this as well, but I'm so happy that our internal amazing engine, the clerks, are leading this effort. So your lightly used clothes can go a long way in helping someone recently released from LMDC, that's right over here at 6th and Liberty, join Louisville Metro Councilwoman, me, and the Metro Council Clerk's Office to assist those re-entering our city from incarceration. Simply drop off clothing items in the bin right outside of the clerk's office. For more information, please contact my office, and you can come in and call 502-574-3902. And they can be gently used. The jail is ready to receive them, make sure they can get the items. There is a donation drive, so the most requested items, can you believe it? I need it right now. Chapstick, comb and brush, travel size first aid kits, alcohol wipes, disposable body washcloths, bottled water, dry shampoo, bus passes, phone chargers with power banks, prepaid cell phones, I know that's on the higher end for those of you with money, men's clean pants, size 30 to 44, is the most urgent need. There's not enough clothing for people exiting Louisville Metro Department of Corrections. Thank you.
Councilman Herndon, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. It's been my pleasure to be for the last 3 years, to be the volunteer design director of Roots 101 African American Museum at the corner of Washington and First Street. To all folks outside the 4th Metro Council District, I urge you to go by there and check out this hidden jewel in our community. But for the folks inside the 4th District, in honor of Black History Month, for the 4 Saturdays in a row, we are offering a free trip from Russell, Victory Park, Smoketown in California, a trip on a TARC bus, free food, a lecture, and then free access to Routes 101 for 2 hours, and then a trip back to those original pickup locations. Take a look at our newsletter and our website, and if you live in one of those neighborhoods in the 4th District, please come and join us. You'll enjoy this very much, and all others do the same on your own time. But we'll have our own folks on the buses. Thank you, sir.
With no further business, this concludes the meeting. Our next meeting is scheduled for Thursday, February 13th, 2025 at 6 p.m. And without objection, we stand adjourned.